Hey folks, it's Jared Manninen from the website Tahoe Trail Guide. Today I'm going to go over a couple of basic snowshoeing concepts. Now a lot of people kind of take for granted the ease of use of snowshoeing, but I've met many people who have actually wondered what all the hidden and secret techniques are to snowshoeing. I hate to break it to you, but they are pretty basic to use. Mostly lift your knees up a little higher. As you can see, we've got some pretty deep snow here. But mostly lift your knees up higher, walk a little bit wider, and you'll be all right. However, there are some specific techniques that'll make your journey a little bit safer and a little bit more enjoyable, so I'll be sure to share those with you. So if you're in deep snow and you want to take a break, a lot of times I'll pack down the snow and where I'm going to be standing. And that way it keeps the snow off my feet and gives us, whoever I'm with, a stable platform on which to stand while we're hanging out, having a snack or taking a break, whatever. Now if you are going to take a break, always be mindful. These pine branches have a lot of snow on them, so if a big gust of wind does hit, that snow could drop on top of us. However, it's kind of calm right now. You can see the snowflakes are dropping straight down, so this seems as good a place as any to rest. As you can see by the profile of this snow down here, we are in about 1.5 feet of fresh powder, so it's pretty exhausting to actually break your own trail. But once you have more than one person on the trail with you, you can kind of leapfrog and take turns breaking trail, and the people behind the line have it a lot more easy than the person up in front. So one of the ways that you can make a turn while standing still is a real simple thing. It's funny because I see a lot of people actually stumble just by basically standing still and wanting to look in a different direction on the flat surface, and what ends up happening is that when they go to turn around, they forget they're wearing their snowshoes, and then they end up stepping on top of their snowshoe and pitching forward. You have to be conscious that you got these big floppy things on your feet, otherwise you can end up falling down pretty easy. But generally speaking, keep the tails of your snowshoes in place and just move the tips. So you'll just make these small little, micro steps as far as going around in a circle. And it's a pretty simple technique, but again, it's just one of those things that you have to fall at least once to realize that you can't just act like you normally would and take a step back like that, and all of a sudden you've pinned yourself to the ground. A lot of people kind of don't really think about until they've fallen once or twice trying to do it, is to walk backwards in snowshoes. It's not the easiest thing, and you can see that the snowshoes have a hinge. So this hinge that the ball of your foot is attached to allows you to walk normal. Otherwise you'd be just clomping around with these things stationary to your foot. You'd look like Frankenstein going through the forest here, and nobody wants to look like that. So they have basically a free heel. The heel is free to walk normally. What that means though is when you are walking backwards, you have to be pronounced in how high you lift up your leg. So for example, if I don't lift it up far enough, that back can kind of like dig in. So you really have to, I like to point my toe, almost like kind of if I was going to stab the earth with my toe. So it brings the snowshoe mostly level, and then kind of walking back. If you've ever seen one of those dogs wearing booties that just doesn't want to wear the booties, this kind of looks like that dog. But if you don't want to fall on your butt and 1.5 feet of fresh powder, this kind of helps. But not as easy to do in powder, and I'll demonstrate that here. So yeah, I needed a little bit of an assistance with the trekking poles in order to accomplish that. If I had to back up, it would probably be because I ended up walking in some type of terrain feature that was very dangerous or hazardous, and it was an absolute must that I went back. So if I get to a precipice of some sort and I knew that the edge was going to cleave off and fall 1,000 feet into the whatever valley below, that I would use that. But otherwise, just keep walking forward and you'll be fine. There's basically two different ways to get up a hill. One, you could go directly up the hill, or the other way, you could traverse and you could create a zigzag pattern up the hill. If you want to go straight uphill, there's two options. One, you just kick steps, and I'll show you on this kind of low angle. It's not really necessary as to do it right here, but just for training purposes, we'll show you. So the ball of my foot here has, all snowshoes will have a pretty aggressive crampon underneath the ball of your foot, because that's where the most of your weight is going to be focused. So as you're going up, you can kind of kick steps, or you can really plant the ball of your foot so that that main crampon is gripping and you don't have to worry about falling back. Now if the pitch is super steep, which this is not, but if it was, a lot of snowshoes will incorporate kind of a heel rise, and that's to decrease the strain on your calf. So you flip that thing up and it gives you like 1.5 to 2 inches of play. Now I'd do it on both snowshoes if I was going to actually use it, but I just wanted to show that you could do this. It does decrease calf strain a little bit. However, I generally don't use that. It feels weird, and I don't have the biggest feet, so sometimes it feels like it might just undo this thing, because all it takes is a thwap right there and it'll come down. So anyway, I generally don't use that. I'll just kick steps with that main crampon and go up the hill. One way that I like to move uphill, usually on pretty steep pitches but short ones, so like a berm at the side of your driveway. That's a good use for this one. But anyway, it's basically called sidestepping, and you're just going to sidestep. You're going to do small steps with your feet uphill, and your feet are remaining parallel, and you do have to definitely get the tails up so that they don't drag. But it's an easy way to get up a short, steep section if for whatever reason it doesn't work out that you can go directly up it or not. So I'm going to zigzag up this little incline here. Again, it's not very steep, but for our purposes here, I just kind of wanted to show you what I'm doing with my feet. So once you go up into one direction, you're going to want to change directions. And in order to do that so that you don't fall down, what I like to do is I kind of put the poles perpendicular to the fall line, so it's kind of creating this stable platform that I can put my hands on top of. And the uphill side snowshoe, I'm going to lift up and rotate so it's pretty much 180 degrees from the downhill side. And then I'm going to bring that ski pole or trekking pole back, create another platform so I have 3 points of contact. This foot that I just rotated and put down on the ground, and then my 2 poles. Then I'm going to kick my foot up and then carry on. Now if I was to go back, just lather, rinse, repeat, put the poles down, rotate the foot, bring that pole back up front so that the direction of travel, you're ready to go, and kick your foot free and continue on.
Here I am walking up a relatively steep hill, and you can see I'm definitely getting a workout here. It's pretty deep snow, but I'm using that same traversing technique where that uphill foot, I'm rotating 180 degrees to create my own personal switchback, so to speak, and then bringing those poles around so that I can use them to balance on top of while I kick that lower hill leg up and around. In this particular example, it's probably not really necessary that I do this traversing technique. Generally speaking, you can just contour terrain and do gradual arcs or gradual turns rather than having to actually do this specific traversing technique. Unless the hill is very icy, you can pretty much just walk downhill. Just make sure you balance your weight directly over your feet.
The first rule about falling down in snowshoes is don't fall down in snowshoes, especially if it's deep snow like this. Probably have about 1.5 feet of powder here, and you can easily suffocate in that if you start to panic. So don't fall down. However, if you do fall down, the second rule is don't panic. You have to have your mind clear, you have to be focused and determined, and if you're stressing out, panicking, and flailing about, it's just not going to work for you to get up very effectively or efficiently. So I'm going to demonstrate a couple different ways that you get up out of deep snow when you're in snowshoes and you have trekking poles. So first thing, clear the pathway around your mouth so that you can breathe. I'm going to go ahead and undo the straps on my poles. Clear. And instead of trying to sit up and doing a crunch, that takes a lot of energy, I'm going to gather both poles in one hand and I'm going to roll over onto one side. And by using these poles, that kind of create like a stable platform that I can push off of with at least one hand. So I'm onto one hip now. I have these poles, and you can use it to push up or not. But ultimately, you want to get your feet underneath your body. So the idea is that you do want to try to stack your weight underneath your feet so you can push directly up. Between using the poles and your snowshoes, you can create a stable platform. Even though there's this much snow, you can still compress it down enough that it will hold you upright. Hence, I'm not falling 3 or 4 feet below the snow right now.
I haven't emphasized it a whole lot, but the importance of compressing the snow around you in order to create a platform from which you can stand up is pretty critical when trying to get up from a fall, particularly if you're on flat terrain such as this. The urge to try to lift yourself up or push yourself up with your trekking poles is great, but you have to resist it. It's not going to work. You're going to just wind up bending or breaking your pole or bearing your pole up to the handle. It's just not worth doing. That's why I put them together and use them as kind of an anchor or a platform to push off of. And I also use them to help compress the snow around me so that I can create that firm layer that I can stand up on. And in these examples of me trying to get up, I hope what you see I'm doing is not trying to flail about, wasting a whole bunch of energy, but rather gathering my senses, orienting myself, clearing my face so that I can breathe, and then trying to like pack down the snow around me. This does take some strength because ultimately I'm doing a one-legged squat or lunge or pistol squat, but that's your best way of getting up, is if you can just get your feet under your body and then stand directly up. In this example, I'm not using any poles, and it definitely makes it more challenging to get up because a couple of times there where I start to post hole up to my shoulders, trying to push up with my hands alone. Clearly, it's not a huge amount of surface area that my hands create, which is why I always tend to bring trekking poles with me when snowshoeing. Alright folks, that's all I got. That was a pretty long one. Hope you made it all the way through. I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'd also love to hear from you if you had any comments or feedback regarding your experience snowshoeing. Take care.